Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to our first interview of many for the Georgia's 14th Congressional District race that will happen in March. And today we have our first interview with many candidates will have. And this race is to replace Marjorie Taylor Greene, who resigned in January. And today we have Shawn Harris, a Democrat who ran in 2024 and is trying again for Congress. Thank you so much for coming. So we'll start with the main question. You previously ran in 2024, as you know, and are now running again in the special election after the resignation of Marjorie Taylor Greene. What motivated you to run again?
First of all, I want to say I'm so excited to be on your podcast. This is awesome. I know that you're a student, and I always like to make sure that I reach back to our young people and make sure that they get an interview. So to answer your question, yes, last time we ran against Marjorie Taylor Greene, we obviously did not win. However, as a Democrat, we received the most votes ever as a Democrat in this district, roughly about 135,000. And the 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 key piece about that 135,000, it was a combination between Democrats, independents, and common sense Republicans. And from that motivated us to run again. And I was already running against Marjorie in this particular race until she made the decision to quit on the people of Northwest Georgia in December, January, depending on how you want to look at it. And now I'm running against, I think, 17, 18 Republicans.
17.
And we're in a different type program, but that's fine. We're going to figure out who's the best candidate. And then on March 10th, we're going to have the election, and we look to win that and go on to Washington, D.C.
Yes, but as you mentioned, this is a heavily Republican district with over, as you said, 17 Republicans are running, and possibly we'll have a second round, a runoff on April because we have so many candidates, so we have a lot of people to vote. And my question is, how do you plan to attract those Republicans because you really need them to win this race? So you really are counting on that.
Yeah, what we're doing is, or what I'm doing is, we're focused on kitchen table issues. Right now, everybody across this district is hurting when it comes to affordability. That means people are having to make a decision on how do they pay for their health insurance, because right now the ACA is out the roof. In addition to that, the cost of groceries, milk, and cereal is also out the roof. So my conversation to Republicans is this: Marjorie Taylor Greene has been your representative for 5 years. You actually got absolutely nothing. Shawn Harris is a tested leader, a person that focuses 100% on the people here in Northwest Georgia. The people here in Northwest Georgia is my boss. I'm not tied to Donald Trump saying whatever Donald Trump says, I'm going to do it. My 17 other candidates, when you get a chance to talk to them, every last one of them would tell you that first is Donald Trump. When they say that, they're saying that the people here in Northwest Georgia is second. I believe Democrats, independents, and Republicans are tired of being second, and I'm the candidate that's going to make them first. And with that, that is why right now, unbelievable amounts of Republicans are actually coming to my side. If you ever get a chance to come through our district, you will see signs throughout the district that says Republicans for Shawn.
Yes, and that is a very important aspect, as you mentioned. As well, you mentioned the affordability issue that it's so spoken right now across America, and the high cost of living, which is a very important
Mhm.
issue. What are your specific proposals to boost the local economy, also creating jobs? Because so many people are now struggling to healthcare premiums, as you said, and the ACA probably of the so-called Obamacare is now being reduced, and Republicans are now trying to pass the new bill for the government to keep it open. That's also a very important issue. The question is, what are your positions in terms of making more affordable life in America? Because it's such an important issue.
Yeah, the affordability is a big, big issue. One of the things I plan to do when I get to Congress, and I talk about this all the time because I do town halls all over the district. I'm one of the only candidates that actually do town halls that we go to every county. Everybody is welcome to come. We don't have to sign up or anything. And what I talk about in those town halls, after listening to the people, is this. I will bring generational jobs here to the district. And what I mean by generational jobs, those jobs will actually pay you a livable wage, will actually even pay you better than a livable wage. But these jobs that I'm talking about will be here for the next 30 and 40 years. So not only giving the individual today a job, but I want to bring in jobs that would give your grandkids a job and make sure that, as you know, right now in the United States, when I was young, I think I bought my first house in my mid 20s. Now, the average American and the average person in this district is struggling to buy a house, and most of them are in their 40s before they can even afford to get a house. So, all of these things that you are talking about, or we are talking about, bringing in generational jobs, bringing down the cost of everyday table issues, and on top of that, bringing down healthcare, with me working on all of those things at the same time, will make it where the average everyday hardworking person here in Northwest Georgia can actually get ahead. And that is the difference between me and the other 17 candidates.
Right, now I'm going to talk about another topic. You recently signed a term limits pledge for Congress. Why do you support this measure? For example, Bernie Sanders, who is caucusing with the Democrats in the Senate, says that term limits are just elections. So why do you support term limits specifically?
Yeah, and I thank you for that question. And the reason why I signed it is simple. I'm not really a politician. You know, I spent 40 years in the military. I'm retired. My wife and I are back here. We started our cattle farm. When I decided to get into this race, my wife and I had a conversation. And because I spent all those years in the military and traveling around the world, it is time for me to be at home with the family and the grandkids. My wife said, when you go to DC, you can't stay up there for 15 and 20 years. No, you are only going to go whatever term limits are. So before I even signed the thing, I had already agreed for term limits at my own kitchen table with my wife, Carla. So Carla is the one saying, no, you are not going to turn into a career politician. I'm going to do term limits, and term limits as a congressman is actually 3 terms. So when I finish up my 3 terms, if good Lord bless me to do that, then somebody else will replace me. And I think that's what all of us should be doing. And I'm not sure that my counterparts do that or not.
Right, and now, as you mentioned before, you are a retired Army general and you have extensive military experience. What specific policies do you advocate for the military people that are living in Georgia and also veterans that are so important as well for their service to America, and what do you defend for them specifically?
Yeah, because I did all those years in the military, my focus in this district is, in our district, we roughly have about 40,000 veterans in our district. That means, as a veteran, we feed into the VA hospital, or feed into the VA system. I want to make sure, because in our district right now, we have a small clinic in Rome. They do a very good job, but they don't have all the doctors and nurses and everything they actually need there. So we got a personnel issue. Then on top of that, in this district, because we're in a rural area, if you don't go into that particular clinic, you either have to go downtown Atlanta or you have to go up to Chattanooga, Tennessee. What I want to see for our veterans is 2 things. One, I want to make sure that our VA hospitals in our district and around our district actually hire the doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals that they need, instead of cutting back on the VA. The other thing that I will be doing for our veterans on day one, in our district, while Margie was here, she never had any offices open in the district at all. So that meant that everyday citizens could not really reach out to her. When they called, that call went to Washington, D.C., and it kind of got lost out there. What I plan to do is open up 3 offices here in the district. One would be in Dalton, Georgia, one would be in Rome, Georgia, and one would be over in the West Cobb area, because our district is 10 counties, is 157 miles one way. So it's very, very big. I want to make sure that our citizens and our veterans can easily get to any one of my offices. And when I say get to any of my offices, if they need to talk to me and my staff, I will have staff members there. But to get right at your question, what I'm going to do for our veterans, inside of those three offices will be an office strictly for veterans and their spouses, so that when they come in and they need to fill out paperwork so that they can get the benefits that they have already earned, that particular person won't talk to them about it. That person will help them fill out the paperwork, get it done, get it filed, follow back up with them. And now the veteran or the veteran spouse, if the veteran's passed away, the spouse can now get the benefits that they have deserved. So that's going to be my focus when it comes to our veterans, because inside of our district, we don't have any active duty or military bases. What we have is veterans that have already served our country. And as a veteran, I'm going to make sure I take care of them every day.
So now I'm going to move to another topic. The 14th district, which I mentioned again, it's a very conservative district, has a strong tradition of supporting the Second Amendment. How do you view that part of protection, the Second Amendment, and also fighting the so important gun violence issue right now that is in America?
Yeah, yeah. I thank you for that question. So many times the Republicans try to put a Democrat in a particular box and say, hey, if you vote for a Democrat, he's going to come and take your guns and all these different things. Well, what I would tell you is this. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a real politician. The other thing is, yes, I am a Democrat, but I'm not married to a particular party. If you would talk to my 17 counterparts, every last one of them would tell you that they are connected to Donald Trump, or at least they want to be connected to Donald Trump. To get at the Second Amendment question, as Shawn Harris, I actually carry. I spent 40 years in the military. I've trained many people how to shoot weapons throughout the world. I am not coming to get anybody's weapon at all. I want to make sure that you have your Second Amendment rights, period. I also want to make sure that you are a responsible gun owner just like I am. When I'm here at the house, I make sure, because my grandkids come here, I make sure my weapons are locked up. When I'm in my vehicle, I make sure that if I get out the vehicle and I leave it in the vehicle, I make sure that my vehicle's locked up, because that weapon is my responsibility. So, to make it clear to all of our viewers, Shawn Harris supports the Second Amendment. Shawn Harris is not coming to get anybody's weapon, and Shawn Harris wants you to be able to protect your family and carry your weapon anytime you want to do it, because guess what? Shawn Harris is also carries concealed. Myself, I'm just like you. I have a license to carry concealed and been doing that now for 25 plus years.
But do you support expanding background checks for all the gun purchases?
I firmly believe that when you actually buy a weapon, yes, they should do a background check. The reality of it is, we have certain individuals that may be having some issues. I'll say it that way. We don't need to make sure that that person get a weapon, or on top of that, if that person already has a weapon and actually having some mental issues, we need to get that person some help. As you kind of mentioned, we do have a problem here in the United States with people getting mass killings and all those kind of things. We need to continue to work on this. When I get to Congress, again, I am not coming to take anybody's weapons. I want to make sure that that weapon is locked up in a responsible way, and that gun owner is responsible for that particular weapon. That is where I stand.
And also, relative to this question, political violence is also growing, and a lot of we have a very polarizing country. That's also true. And the question for me is, how do you plan to just not identify people in between their parties and try to have a decent, I would say, discussion with people from around the bipartisan spectrum? And you don't need to just focus on their parties, but also in terms of their ideas. I think it's also a very important issue what you think about that. And
Yeah, I would tell you, I think I'm the only candidate. I know I'm the only candidate in this race, because yes, I'm a Democrat, but I am a centrist. That simply means that when I wake up in the morning, I'm trying to figure out, how can we get to yes? How can we get to results? As we're filming this right now, our government in DC is trying to figure out, is the government going to stay open or closed? It's going to come down to a few leaders in DC that's going to get in a room and find compromise. I want to be one of those individuals when I get to DC, is that when everybody's screaming and yelling at each other, I'm part of that few that get in the room and work out the deal that we can keep our government open. We can make sure that everything we need to be doing for the people of the United States gets done, because you need people going to DC that are leaders and actually adults. You hear that all the time. We need some adult leadership in DC. And when I say that, I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans. Shawn Harris will go to DC, stay laser focused on what's best for Northwest Georgia. That's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to make sure that we get away from all this chaos that we've been under for the last 5 years.
Would you vote for this bill that's being proposed in the House to maintain the government?
Yes, the bill that's currently going through. And when we say the bill is currently going through, I want to be clear. Last night, it was some compromise in the Senate where pretty much the rest of the government will stay open. The HHS part of it is going to be slipped for another 2 weeks for more debate. If that vote goes through this morning and the government stays open, then that means that the House will have to come back to work, because right now they're at home. They'll come back to work either Sunday or Monday and vote. Hopefully they vote and agree so the government can stay open. Now, on the HHS side of this thing, I would be the one that says, just like everybody across the board, Democrats and Republicans have all agreed that HHS is right now needs to have some more control measures put on it. I think even President Trump has said that, because he sent new leadership to Minnesota, as you and I are now talking, and they have actually pulled some of the immigration agents out of Minnesota. So everybody's trying to calm things back down, because no way in America that American citizens should ever get killed by the federal government.
I'm going to move to that subject after. Sorry. So it's well established that you were mentioning as well that by now the Americans think that ICE should have limitations. For example, 1610 Americans disapprove ICE, and they say that it's gone too far and it's too tough. And right now the Trump administration has been prioritizing border security. And my question is very simple. What is your position on immigration, how we should deal with illegal immigration and with border control as a whole?
Yeah, let me first say, President Biden and his team had let the border get out of control. I'll say that off the top. I got to also give President Trump credit. He did get the border shut down. I'm talking about the border of Texas and all that. He actually has shut the border down. That is solved. Now, President Trump did say that he was going to go for the worst of the worst. Murderers, rapists, and all of these people. That's who he was going to go and get out of our country. Well, right now, it doesn't look like he's doing that, because the people that we are snatching up and putting into jail and then sending them somewhere, some of those people actually are American citizens. Some of those are kids. And that is why the American people, like you just stated there in the poll, are not happy. And when I say not happy, it's not just Democrats, independents, it's also Republicans are saying, this is not what we were told. This is not what we signed up for. We wanted to make sure when we actually deport somebody from the country, let's do it with respect, and let's do it following our rules of law.
And a follow-up question also about that. Do you support abolishing ICE?
No. And the reason why I say no is I know individuals that work in ICE prior to this administration. They are hardworking people. What is currently going on, the leadership of ICE has changed the way they actually did their business. For hundreds of years, ICE has been on the ground working, and nobody even knew who they were at all. It's just now these last few years that now ICE has turned into a bad name. So no, I would not abolish. What I would do is put in more oversight and make sure that they actually come back into the norm.
President Trump today nominated another Fed chairman to replace Jerome Powell, and having a lot of criticism about that because they say that many people says that maybe the independence of the Fed is being questioned here. And my point is, do you agree with that, and what can we do to avoid that?
Well, I first of all, let me say I haven't. I was actually outside on the farm, so I don't know who President Trump nominated.
Kevin Walsh was
Okay,
the
but
nominee.
what I will say is yes, the Fed should be and always should be separate from anybody trying to tell them what to do. Because right now, if the president can tell the Fed what to do, that is a very slippery slope. And when I get to Congress, I'll be working with Congress to make sure that that doesn't actually happen.
Also, many residents in your district live in healthcare deserts, basically, with limited access to medical services and have
Mhm.
one of the highest suicide rates across all Georgia. What is your
Yes.
vision for improving healthcare access, including whether to preserve or even expand Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, as you mentioned before?
Yes. I what I'm planning to do here in the district is this. One, we have the facilities, we have the hospitals. The problem that we in, we don't actually have the doctors and nurses to actually work in the place. The big beautiful bill talks about this. However, there's no money put in there to actually bring the doctors on board. When I get to Congress, I'll make sure the money's there to bring those doctors on board. In addition to that, here in the rural community, we don't actually have the wraparound mental health services. Hence, suicide rates are very high. Suicide rates are very high because we have the farmers, which agriculture is our number one industry. Farmers are actually killing themselves because they're struggling on their farm. And then we also have our veterans that are actually also committing suicide. So, with those two factors, I got to bring in more services. I got to bring in the wraparound services because right now, farmers and our veterans, when they actually in a struggle, they actually go to our sheriff to the jail, and that's where they stay because we don't have the facilities. So I will be getting at that and making sure that they have health care. But like you said, we got a healthcare desert here in Northwest Georgia.
And do you support a universal state-funded healthcare system like many Democrats, like the most liberal ones, AOC, Bernie Sanders says multiple times?
No, Shawn Harris is my own guy. I like Bernie Sanders. I like AOC, but that's not my name. When I get to Congress, I got to figure out what is best for us right here in Northwest Georgia. The key thing about Bernie Sanders and AOC, they are both connected to very large cities. They have access to things. So as a Democrat, I got to look, and like I said several times, I got to look through the lens of what is best for the people here in Northwest Georgia in a rural community. That is the way I'm going to make sure that I address our healthcare issues because we don't actually have a hospital every 10 miles. We might have one hospital per county or one hospital every two or three counties.
Also, many Democrats and also independents and Republicans view abortion as a significant issue. Do you support, if you are elected into Congress, do you support codifying Roe v. Wade into a federal law and even expanding abortion access?
No, I would tell you point blank. I believe that a woman should have the option to choose whatever she wants to do. And when I say that that conversation should be between her family, and her doctor. That is where I stand. And at the end of the day, like I mentioned to you earlier, right now in the Northwest Georgia, we are struggling just to feed our families. We are struggling just to have a job. And when you start getting into some of these other issues, those are the issues that people try to pull us in to find out where we don't agree. What I'm doing is bringing us back to the table and say, okay, where do we agree? Because before we can even start discussing some of those things, you still got to be able to feed your family, period.
Now that you talk about feeding our family, I have a very simple question for you. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage, which is right now at 7.25 cents per hour, I think?
Yeah, you know, when I hear that the federal wage is $7 and some cent, it makes me chuckle. And the reason why it makes me chuckle is because no matter where you go in the United States, no matter where you go in the United States today for lunch, you pick the fast food place, McDonald's, Wendy's, whatever you want to go to, and you go and buy the normal meal, whatever it is, the hamburger, French fries, and soda, and guess what? You're going to spend 12 plus dollars. That right there tells you that if you're making $7 and some cent an hour, you can't even afford to buy lunch. So if you can't afford to buy lunch for yourself, then how are you going to be able to pay for dinner for your entire family? That's what I'm talking about, a livable wage. I want that livable wage so that too many people here in Northwest Georgia have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. That's not right. Or they work at McDonald's or they work at Burger King and they can't even afford to buy the lunch at lunchtime.
Also, another important aspect in America is housing. Housing is a very expensive problem right now, and many people are struggling to pay their mortgage because mortgage rates have gone up because of the in 2022 because of the inflation crisis, and then the Fed needed to increase rates. My question for you is very simple: how can you make housing more affordable for people? Because it's such an important aspect. I mean, you need to have a home to live.
Yes, I would tell you specifically here to Northwest Georgia, and I'm not sure if you're tracking this, is we have a couple of things going on. Just like in the United States across the board, housing is out the roof. We have to get the cost of housing down. But what's happening here in Northwest Georgia, and I use Paulding County as an example, we have corporate America that has came in and bought up all the single family homes. And from that, a average everyday person like you cannot compete against corporate America. So hence, corporate America lets you lease the house. They keep all the benefits of having the American dream and the tax write-offs of owning a house, but you get to say, well, I live in it, but you're leasing it. We first got to stop that. President Trump just the other day made some announcements about that because the word is finally getting to him that his billionaire friends are the ones that are actually buying up all the houses and making it hard for you and I to actually be able to go out and purchase a house because we cannot compete against somebody sitting on a computer that says, I'm buying all 40 houses, no questions asked. Hence, when I clean that up, we'll continue to clean up everything and get prices of houses, build more houses, because if you get more houses built, then the supply and demand comes down and the cost of houses will come down.
Also, President Trump said one of his important tasks for this presidency is to increase manufacturing in America. But at least for the last year, that did not happen. And George is very important stating that. And my question to you is: do you support the tariffs the Trump administration implemented with that focus?
No, we just have to be clear. A tariff is a tax, and that tax is on us as the American people. I don't care how you want to cut it. You can talk to all the economists out there; they will tell you point blank it is a tax. And those taxes or that tariff is actually hurting Georgia, specifically hurting the people here in Northwest Georgia, because our number one industry in Northwest Georgia is agriculture. We don't have anywhere to sell our products. Two major things that happen in Northwest Georgia is chickens and beef. As you know, the president a few months ago stuck his hands and got into the business of beef, and it made the markets go crazy. Okay? What farmers are telling me and what I believe is this: let's get out of this tariffs and let us deal with free trade. And we think that we can produce a product that we can compete with anybody in the world, but we also want to be able to feed the American people. And right now, we are in a tough situation that when I have beef on my farm, I don't really have anywhere that's certified that can actually process it so that I can sell it to my neighbor. So there's a lot of little things in agriculture that we got to get fixed.
Many people across the country have been advocating for this, the creation of a wealth tax to tax the 1% richer in America. Do you support
Mhm.
that?
Yes, it's at the end of the day, if you're blessed to be in that 1%, then that 1% should be paying more taxes than the third at the lowest part of our economic thing. Right now, our lowest paid Americans, when you look at the percentages, pay our lowest paid Americans pay more in taxes than our top 1%. So we got to get that figured out and get it figured out real quickly. And I think as President Trump's goes through this process, and we send more people to Congress that's willing to stand up, we will get that back in line.
Do you support requiring voter ID for federal elections?
It's not a question that I support it. We already do that. Uh, every time you go vote, you have to show a certified, guaranteed ID. Hence, I'm sitting right here in my office talking to you. I vote all the time. You don't have to go looking for anything special. You just there it is. It's called your driver's license. It's called whatever other ID that the government gives you that proves who you are, has your home address, the whole 9 yards. And even in Georgia today, our driver's license are what they call certified so that you can actually go get on the airplane. So that means you have been triple checked. If you already been triple checked to get on the plane, you should be good to go vote.
Do you support releasing the Epstein Files?
All day, every day. That is the one thing that Marjorie Taylor Greene and I, when we was running against each other,
She
just
resigned
this
because
last
of
time,
that.
yep, we both agree that the Epstein files should be released and it should be redacted to take care of the victims. However, what's currently happening right now is FBI is being Justice Department is very, very slowly about releasing them. And then what they're releasing is nothing but a piece of paper with nothing but black lines on it. So if you take what I said and then as see what Marjorie's saying, Shawn Harris and Marjorie are saying for one time in this life, we both in violent agreement that the Epstein files need to be released and released right now.
Now moving to foreign policy, just to finish our conversation, President Trump said multiple times that NATO is not paying their fair share, and that's why many Republicans and actually President Trump is now saying as well that he will get Greenland, that he needs Greenland for national security purposes. Do you agree on that?
Well, let me say this. As you can see behind me, there's a lot of military stuff behind me. That one picture, I'm not sure how well your audience can see it. That's me in Afghanistan in 2007, 2008. How did we end up in Afghanistan? Because of a thing called 9/11, and NATO came to our watch, period. We could not have fought that war and won that war without NATO's help. In addition to that, a little bitty country that's Danish, that's connected, called Greenland, they actually sent troops too. It was more troops that died from Greenland than any other country. So my answer to you is this. I support NATO 100%. When I was in the military, not only did I work with NATO, but at some of my assignments, I was part of NATO. And then when it comes to Greenland, we have already got all the agreements that we need with Greenland to do whatever we want to do. And because Greenland is part of NATO, if China or Russia would attack Greenland, all of us through NATO would attack them. That is Article 5. So the reality of it is, I don't think President Trump understands what he already has. I'll say it this way. President Trump needs to get better advisors because his advisors don't know how the world's supposed to work. We already can do whatever we want to do in Greenland. Greenland has said how many military bases you want to have, you can put them here. We don't have to own it to actually have a strategic location and also be able to defend it because it is part of NATO.
Yes, and also about national security. President Trump made a military operation in Venezuela a month ago, not even a month ago right now, and he said that it was because they were destroying America and they were exporting drugs to America. Do you agree on that, or do you think, as many Democrats have outlined, that it's just because of the oil?
Well, President Trump says so many things. Um, I will say this. The president of Venezuela was a very bad person. I'm not going to say that it was in our strategic interest to go there and snatch him out of his country at this moment in time. What I will say is as time go on, when I get to Congress with all the rest of the congressmen, Democrats, independents, and Republicans, we really need to look at this is because what makes me different from my 17 Republican counterparts is I actually fought in a forever war. Afghanistan, I fought in a forever war. The last thing I want to see happen, we do something that we get our kids and grandkids involved in another war. And by going into Venezuela, what we actually did, that is a action of war. Luckily, things seem to be calming down, but we'll see. So my job by going to Congress is to ask the hard questions. My experience of being in the military for all these years and having to go to combat, lead men in combat, I'm going to ask the hard question before we do it. Why are we doing it? If we do it, is it in our strategic interest? And then if it is in our strategic interest, what do we consider winning? What is our end state? And right now, I think nobody's actually asking President Trump that hard question, and that question needs to be asked.
Yes. And right now we have a very polarized Congress. 220 Republicans and 215 Democrats were elected in the last election in 2024. I'm not counting the vacancies right now that we have. And how do you intend to work in a bipartisan way, I assume, in Washington to deliver concrete results for the people of Georgia?
Yeah, you know, all of my career, all of my career has been focused on helping the United States get to yes. I did that in Afghanistan, even though it was in the middle of a war. I sat down with the Taliban, I sat down with others to try to get to yes. Some days it worked, some days it didn't. I did that all the way through my career, all the way to a general officer. When I get to DC, because my focus is Northwest Georgia and I work for the people of Northwest Georgia, it is my job not to sit down and say to people, we don't agree on this and we don't agree on that. What do we agree upon? And guess what? It's a lot of Republicans and Democrats and independents that are representing small town rural America. I believe if I can caucus with those individuals, we can all work together because all of us are in a food desert. All of us are in a healthcare desert. All of us are people working 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And that will make us all say, let's make sure we come back to kitchen table issues. What can we do best? And I'm the only candidate that you're going to talk about that talks about trying to get to yes and working across the aisle.
And now to finish this, I just want to ask you, what are you going to say now to Republicans who don't want to vote for you, but you want to see have an opportunity to convince those voters until the election? And that's what I ask you at the end, because you really need those voters. And as I said before, and now I'm going to say just to have a last minute to talk to them.
Yeah, I would tell you when I talk to my Republican brothers and sisters, and I say brothers and sisters because guess what? All of us are right here in Northwest Georgia, and we all got the same needs. What I say to them is this: Shawn Harris is a Democrat, but I am not married to a party. Well, the other thing I always say is this: my promise to you is that when I build my team and take it to Washington, D.C., when I build my team that's currently going to be in those 3 offices that I talked about, it will be Democrats, independents, and Republicans that work in those offices for me. So that when we're actually putting together policy, it will be all of us making sure that this is just not some Democrat thing or whatever. This will be something that says this works for everybody in our district. And I believe that because Republicans are tired also, they want somebody that's going to say, I'm going to fight directly for them, not put them in the back seat or not even in the car. And that's why Republicans are coming to me because I am the only candidate that's talking about bringing jobs here. I'm the only candidate that's talking about bringing down health care, bringing down costs. But I'm also the only candidate that says our debt for our grandkids is way too high. So, for all practical purposes, I'm the Democrat, but I'm the closest to what a Republican used to be back in the Bush Reagan type years of being a fiscal responsible, saying we got to get this debt limit down because we're going to leave our grandkids in a major debt. And right now, many of our kids can't even think about buying a house till they're 40 years old. So the question is, what are we doing? Give me a chance. And if I don't come back with results, it's enough people to vote me right back out. And that's why I'm saying vote for me here on March 10th. Let me go to DC. I prove to you that I can do the job and take care of you and your family to the best of my ability. And then from there, evaluate me. And I will not hide from the people of Northwest Georgia. We will continue to do town halls and we will continue to listen and talk with them so that we are doing the things that they want us to do. So that's basically what I not only I say to Republicans, but that's my message to everybody across the board.
Thank you so much for coming. That was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you and best of luck and keep doing what you're doing.